Welcome to this explainer. Today we're stepping back from the daily news cycle to really look at the underlying structure of our civilization. For a long time, modern society has been entirely obsessed with perfect prevention. We've tried to build systems that literally never break. But as we're going to explore, we really need to transition away from this impossible pursuit of perfect prevention and instead start designing our world for recovery.
Think about it. For decades, the ultimate goal across almost every industry has been to eliminate failure entirely. Zero defects, optimized schedules, perfectly lean inventory management. But we live in a highly interconnected world now, and because of that, avoiding disruption altogether is rapidly becoming an impossible standard. The structural pressure on our civilization is shifting right under our feet. Perfectly rigid systems might be incredibly efficient on a good day, but they are surprisingly fragile when things actually go wrong.
Just look at the cascading disruptors we're facing today. We've got supply chain breaks, extreme weather events, massive cyber attacks, rapid geopolitical shifts, and AI-driven changes. And these aren't just isolated headaches. Because our systems are optimized for maximum efficiency, they've been completely stripped of their slack. A tiny, localized disturbance, like, say, a single storm shutting down a port or a localized cyber breach, can spread like wildfire and disrupt networks on a global scale. So the core vulnerability isn't necessarily just that things break. It's how incredibly fast a localized failure turns into a massive cascade.
Section 2. An increasingly connected world where local failures propagate widely.
Because our global systems, our energy grids, communications, finance, and logistics are so deeply intertwined, the central challenge we faced has fundamentally shifted. We're moving from an old paradigm focused entirely on efficiency, which prioritized lower failure rates, reduced inventory, and optimized personnel, to a completely new paradigm. This new one is all about recovery. It prioritizes shorter downtime, alternative routes, and re-synchronization capacity. In other words, the world is moving away from designing systems that never fail toward designing systems that can bounce back really quickly when they inevitably do. Structurally, this whole transition starts with a disruption, and the critical buffer that absorbs that initial shock is your recovery capacity. You see, merely surviving an impact isn't really the end goal here, especially if the system is left totally crippled afterward. The essential capability for our future is maintaining the capacity to recover, which is what actually allows the system to finally reach resynchronization. Now, what does this capacity actually look like? It's built on a few specific components: buffers, redundancy, repair capability, and resynchronization capacity. Let's be honest, building an infinitely unbreakable system is practically impossible, not to mention wildly expensive. So civilization stability really relies entirely on these specific mechanisms. Moving forward, our true resilience depends way more on our recovery rate than on our failure rate. And the absolute most vital piece of this puzzle is the concept of resynchronization. This is the state where people, organizations, cities, and logistics all align their phases to function together again at a newly established equilibrium. Just recovering individually simply isn't enough. Think about it. If one factory gets back online but the shipping ports are still down, the system hasn't actually healed. Society truly recovers only when multiple broken systems sync back up together. There's a really critical distinction to make here. Recovery is just restoring individual functionality, but resynchronization, that means multiple systems are actually functioning together again. It's literally the difference between fixing a single broken gear and getting the entire clock ticking in rhythm once more. Resynchronization is the true ultimate measure of whether a society has actually bounced back from a shock. If we zoom into the micro level for a second, this philosophical shift touches our daily lives in some very tangible ways. At the personal scale, it means prioritizing rhythm-restoring habits over super rigid schedules, creating environments where a single slip-up isn't catastrophic. For organizations, it means a corporate strategy that invests heavily in diversified suppliers and robust backups. And at the urban or national scale, it demands distributed power grids and alternative logistics networks. Across absolutely every level of society, the focus is shifting away from the idea of never stopping toward returning quickly when stopped. Section 3. A new competitive dimension, adapting under unexpected conditions. This shift isn't just about survival, it's actually becoming a massive competitive advantage. If we look at the structural evolution of systems, we started out focusing on efficiency, which naturally led us into hyper-optimization. But today, that optimization has to give way to recovery capacity as the true foundation for civilizational stability.
Future competitiveness won't come from squeezing out just one more tiny drop of efficiency. It's going to come from maintaining adaptability under completely unpredictable, chaotic pressures.
And that brings us to a really profound observation, a cognitive lens that we absolutely have to use when viewing the future. Resilience is not mere durability. It's the ability to connect to a new equilibrium. True resilience means experiencing disruption, absorbing the break, and then finding a new balance. It's not about being a rigid stone wall that eventually just shatters. It's about being a network that reroutes, reconnects, and resynchronizes.
Which leaves us with a final structural question to consider. As we face all these emerging shifts around us, we really have to ask ourselves, will future civilizations be judged less by how fast they move and more by how well they recover?